Listen closely. A single breath can shift the entire course of a painful moment. A man's words may cut, his actions may shake your balance, yet there is a hidden path through that sting, one most people never see. I am Shi Heng Yi, and tonight I guide you into that quiet path where storms slow down and power returns to your hands. There is a secret that ancient practitioners guarded. Restraint is not weakness, it is a blade sharper than anger. When pain strikes, the heart races, the chest tightens, the mind urges a quick strike back, but in the stillness that follows a deep breath, clarity rises. That brief pause becomes a doorway. Step through it, and the chaos loses its grip. In this journey, you will learn how inner silence unsettles those who tried to break your peace. You will explore subtle Shaolin principles, methods rarely spoken beyond temple walls, techniques for reading inner signals, grounding emotional surges, and shifting energy without a single outward reaction. These are methods that confuse those who expect rage, tears, or collapse. They cannot predict stillness, they cannot confront someone who refuses to carry their burden. Across these minutes, you will uncover ways to reclaim strength after betrayal, wisdom to hold your center during conflict, and strategies for rising above manipulation. You will see how pain can turn into a silent teacher, guiding you toward mastery rather than turmoil. Stay with me until the final line, because the last teaching completes the entire practice. Without it, the earlier principles remain unfinished. Welcome to Heng Yi Chronicles. Join our circle, subscribe, and continue this path of inner mastery with me. Sometimes the echo that reaches you is not your own voice, but the noise someone else cannot quiet inside themselves. I have seen many students crumble under words that were never truly meant for them. A person in turmoil often speaks from the wound, not the truth. Their anger rises like steam from a boiling pot, escaping because it has nowhere else to go. Their accusations, their coldness, their sudden shifts, these are shadows cast by inner storms they have not learned to face. When you take those shadows as your reality, you suffer for a battle that was never yours. There was once a young disciple who came to me distressed after being scolded harshly by another. His spirit was shaken. He believed he had failed, believed he had disappointed the entire temple, but the monk who scolded him was wrestling with sleepless nights and unresolved grief. His words were sharp because his heart was heavy. The disciple had absorbed a pain that did not belong to him. This is the trap many fall into. They catch arrows that were never aimed at their worth, only released out of someone else's imbalance. When you recognize this, something shifts quietly inside. You no longer rush to defend yourself or fight back. You observe, you breathe, you see the space between their chaos and your value. That space is your refuge. It allows you to step back without bitterness, to listen without absorbing, to remain present without being pulled into their storm. Detachment is not indifference, it is understanding. It is the art of seeing another's suffering without making it your identity. When you stop confusing their projection with your truth, your peace becomes untouchable, even when their world is falling apart. There is a quiet strength in saying no to what does not belong to you. The body protects itself from disease with layers of defense, and the mind must do the same with energy and emotion. In the halls of ancient training, disciples learned that boundaries are not walls, but shields, flexible, perceptive, alive. They absorb only what nourishes the spirit and deflect what seeks to corrupt it. When someone throws anger, blame, or manipulation, it is like a storm against the body. Without an inner shield, the storm seeps in, leaving bruises unseen and fatigue that cannot be measured. A young student once approached a master, overwhelmed by a mentor's harsh words and the expectations of others. Each critique pierced his confidence, each subtle rebuke twisted his thoughts. The master taught him to feel the words without swallowing them, to let them pass across the surface of the mind without lodging in the heart. At first it felt strange, even unnatural, to allow harshness to touch without reacting. But over time, the student discovered a calm clarity. He could hear what was said without becoming what was said. he could move in the world without collecting the weight of every attack. This discipline is not coldness, and it is not avoidance. It is presence, awareness, and the cultivation of wholeness. It is the conscious act of refusing to absorb poison. Anger loses its sting when it cannot find a home. Guilt trips dissolve when they are not accepted as truth. Blame falls harmlessly away when the mind remains centered. The practice is subtle, almost invisible, yet its effect is profound. The spirit remains intact, clear, and unshakable. Over time, the shield itself becomes strength, and the energy once lost to external chaos returns to fortify the self, steady and whole. Words carry weight, but silence carries a different kind of force, one that cannot be measured, argued against, or misunderstood. In the quiet of a composed mind, every gesture, every breath, every step becomes a message. The masters of old understood this. They knew that responding to chaos with more chaos only deepens the disturbance, while stillness transforms it into a mirror for those who seek to provoke. A single unspoken moment can unsettle more than 1,000 words. There was a student who faced ridicule from peers during training, their jeers sharp and relentless. At first, he reacted, matching their sharpness with defensiveness, wasting energy and sinking into tension. The master instructed him to remain silent, to move through the day as if untouched, letting the actions of others pass without echoing in his mind. At first, the student felt frustration and confusion, believing that silence was weakness. Yet slowly, he began to notice a shift. The jeers no longer pierced him. The energy he once spent in reaction returned to his practice, his steps steadier, his focus sharper. Observers once mocking began to sense the calm, and respect naturally arose, not from fear or control, but from the unshakable presence he exuded. When one refuses to give pain away, the power of self-preservation unfolds. Life itself becomes a teacher, demonstrating that restraint is not submission, but mastery. In each measured act, each thoughtful pause, the message is clear. You are not governed by the whims of anger or insult. The energy of response returns to its source, the mind, the body, the spirit, fortifying the foundation of self. From this place of calm, existence itself speaks louder than confrontation ever could. The silence is not empty, it is deliberate, potent, and transformative. The fiercest war is not fought with fists or swords, but in the quiet chambers of the mind. Every thought, every memory, every sting of pain can become either a weapon against the self or a teacher for growth. The ancients spoke of this as the battlefield within, where victory is measured not by conquest of others, but by mastery over one's own reactions. A monk does not flee from suffering. He meets it with deliberate awareness, observing the shape of each emotion, the weight of each thought, and the rhythm of each impulse. A disciple once came burdened with resentment, replaying past hurts over and over, letting each memory fester like a wound unhealed. The master taught him to sit with the discomfort, to breathe into it, to see it not as an enemy, but as a signal, a mirror reflecting where attention and care were needed. Slowly, the disciple began to reframe his pain. Anger became insight, disappointment became a guide, fear became a teacher of patience. Every inner struggle transformed into a step toward clarity, every hurt a lesson in resilience. Discipline is not the suppression of feeling, it is the choice of response. Like a skilled monk, you decide the tone of your inner voice, the lens through which you view events, the narrative that shapes your perception. You can allow bitterness to dictate the story, or you can choose awareness and dignity. Each moment of conscious decision strengthens the mind, like muscle forged through repeated practice. Over time, the inner battles cease to drain energy. They refine it, channel it, and return it with greater precision. In this way, mastery is not a state imposed from outside, but a presence cultivated within. Pain is no longer a curse, but a tool, hurt no longer a chain, but a teacher. And the mind, once restless and reactive, becomes a calm and vigilant warrior, capable of facing life with balance and unwavering strength. Pain, when embraced rather than resisted, transforms into a force unlike any other. Betrayal, rejection, or deep hurt can strike like fire, scorching the heart and clouding the mind. Yet the ancients knew that fire, when contained and directed, does not destroy. It forges. In the temples, disciples learned to take the sting of emotional wounds and redirect it into rigorous practice, turning what could have been a burden into a catalyst for growth. A young student once carried the weight of betrayal, each thought of it twisting into bitterness. The master guided him to channel that energy into disciplined training, long hours of physical conditioning, silent meditation to observe and release mental turbulence, and focused study in the arts that demanded precision and patience. With each push, each breath held in stillness, each careful stroke of practice, the pain shifted. It no longer sat as a shadow over his spirit. It became a sharpened edge, a reminder of what he could endure and transform. This alchemy of suffering is subtle but powerful. The mind grows resilient, capable of observing without being overwhelmed. The body becomes a vessel of strength, endurance, and poise. The spirit gains clarity, learning that challenges are not obstacles, but instruments for refinement. Pain no longer drags you down, it elevates you. Each moment of focused energy spent in self-improvement is a silent reclamation, proof that external blows cannot dictate the inner landscape. Through disciplined effort, reflection, and creative engagement, wounds evolve into teachers. The fire that once threatened to consume now illuminates the path forward. Hurt becomes a compass, guiding action with intention, sharpening every aspect of being. In this way, every setback is not an ending, but a deliberate step in the continuous process of self-mastery, where the body, mind, and spirit rise stronger, wiser, and more unshakable than before. The desire for revenge is ancient, as old as human pride and pain itself. Yet those who seek to repay hurt often find themselves ensnared in a cycle that leaves the spirit heavy and restless. True mastery, the teachings of the sages insist, is not in retaliation, but in release. When a student arrived burdened with anger toward a friend who had betrayed him, the master did not offer strategies to strike back. Instead, he guided the student to observe the flow of his own life, to notice how much energy had been consumed by thoughts of retribution, and to turn that energy inward toward his own cultivation. Non-attachment is not indifference, it is clarity. It is the awareness that the world operates according to its own rhythms, and that the justice one seeks from another often arrives in forms unseen and beyond control. By letting go of the need to prove a point or enforce punishment, the mind becomes free to pursue growth unimpeded. The student learned to shift focus from what was owed to him to what could be strengthened within him. Hours once spent brooding were now spent in meditation, in training, in study, in reflection, building resilience, skill, and insight that no external force could undo. There is a subtle power in walking your path without dragging another's debt behind you. When the mind is untethered from the desire to balance scales, it gains space to expand, to refine, to rise. The energy that might have been consumed by anger transforms into creativity, discipline, and presence. The world continues its course, and perhaps justice comes, perhaps not. But the soul that has cultivated focus, patience, and self-mastery is untouched by uncertainty. By tying oneself not to what another deserves, but to one's own journey, every step becomes intentional, every choice deliberate, and the path forward is clear, strong, and profoundly free. True strength begins in the quiet knowledge of one's own worth. Many spend lifetimes seeking validation in the eyes of others, measuring themselves by approval, praise, or recognition, yet such judgments are fleeting, unreliable, and often colored by misunderstanding. In the old monasteries, novices were taught early that value is not granted, it is discovered. One student, eager to impress his peers, bent himself to their expectations, adopting their standards and chasing their approval. With each fleeting compliment, he felt momentary lightness, but it never lasted. When criticism arrived, the weight of self-doubt crushed him more deeply than the original mistake. The master observed and spoke simply, "The opinion of another is a mirror of their perception, not a measure of your essence." To anchor one's sense of value in external forces is to live in constant sway, a ship at the mercy of every passing storm. The path to freedom lies within, in the cultivation of self-respect and the quiet understanding of one's own principles. When the student began to measure himself against his own standards, discipline, integrity, clarity, effort, he discovered a profound resilience. Praise became gentle wind, neither inflating nor defining him. Criticism became a passing cloud, unable to darken the light he carried within. This self-anchoring transforms every encounter. Harsh words lose their sting, dismissals fall harmlessly away, and even envy or manipulation cannot erode a foundation built from within. External disrespect becomes background noise, a rhythm of the world that does not touch the core. Each day spent observing, refining, and aligning actions with inner values strengthens this truth. The mind, once swayed by every reaction of others, becomes still. The spirit, once seeking outside approval, becomes sovereign. When value is self-born, peace is constant, and the world's judgments slide off like water from polished stone, leaving only clarity, balance, and enduring inner strength. True mastery is measured not by how fiercely you strike back, but by how calmly you hold yourself in the face of pain. The world does not need another wound to be carried or mirrored. When harm comes, respond with serenity, sometimes with distance, always with awareness. Avoid vengeance, avoid aggression, for those paths only pull the spirit back into darkness and unrest. Instead, turn inward, strengthen the mind, and cultivate the quiet power of restraint. Each moment you choose clarity over chaos, each time you hold your center rather than reacting, you build resilience that cannot be shaken by the actions of others. Let these lessons guide your daily life. Pause before responding, observe without absorbing, and redirect your energy toward growth, discipline, and inner peace. The path of self-mastery is subtle but transformative, shaping a life rooted in balance, dignity, and quiet strength. Embrace these practices, and you will find that your presence alone radiates power and calm. Thank you for walking this path with us today. If this guidance resonates, join our journey by subscribing to Heng Yi Chronicles and continue exploring the art of living with wisdom, awareness, and unwavering strength.